Base defense in Conan Exiles is getting another upgrade in the Age of War Chapter 3. The new Thrall placement system allows Thralls to man your defences autonomously, and today I'll be showing you how they work. I've built this small stronghold here for the demonstration, complete with a set of defensive walls. Before we get started, there are two new recipes you will need for this. Those are the Burning Siege Cauldron and the Archer Posts. You can loot these from the Purge, so they're fairly easy to get hold of, and they do also require components of advanced crafting to create, which is another resource you can loot from the Purge. These pieces can be mounted into crenellated walls, and that is the first step of accessing this new system of defence. I've set up a few archer posts and some cauldrons over the main gate in this example. However, we should probably first recap the guard posts. Let's meet our fighters. Once they're all outfitted, we can put them into guard positions. This was a feature from last chapter, and it's essentially the same system we'll be using today. You put them into the green ghost outline, and they will just stay there to defend, and if they need to fight, they'll attempt to return here once they're done. It's quite simple, and as long as you have a door frame and a door in that frame, they should be able to be placed in those ghost positions. With the recap done, let's meet our archers. Once they're geared, we can put them into the archer posts we placed down earlier in the same fashion as the guard posts. This turns our archers into basically immovable turrets. They won't run around, they won't pull out melee weapons, they will simply stand here and shoot at whatever enemies are in front of them. That being said, how do they perform? Not too bad at all, they do the job as intended. This is where the learning curve comes in, as admittedly I've actually set up my gate pretty bad, and thus there are a couple of dead zones where the archers cannot reach. So instead, what if we built archer towers? Well, these work much better, and whilst there are still a couple of areas the archers can't hit properly, it's much more effective. I did actually remove that overhang segment over the gate, so the remaining gate archers are a bit more effective, but I find these towers are probably the best way to handle these archer posts. They also seem to pull a lot of aggro, which can slow down the Purge. They're not groundbreaking by any means, but this is a really useful and effective change. Now, the Siege Cauldrons. I've built the walls up a little bit more, as the placement of these is kind of finicky. This new structure instead creates a central column where the cauldrons can pour through. You firstly want to ignite them by putting tar in their inventory, and then grab your Thralls and attach them to the cauldron. Do be careful, as any nearby walls or fences can stop these Thralls being placed, hence why I built the walls up a tile and removed the back fences, as the Thralls' feet do end up right on the edge of the wedge tiles. However, if you build it correctly, your Thrall will be able to man the Siege Cauldron. So, how does this work? They perform pretty well. Your Thralls will basically just dump the cauldron as soon as they can if they detect an enemy underneath them. It's pretty much dumbfire, so it's not perfect. They won't wait for optimal damage or anything like that, but it works. Cauldrons currently don't do a lot of damage. Dennis said they might get a buff, but currently it's a long yet low DPS damage over time effect. However, there's a lot to be said for this source of constant chip damage in helping to thin out the herds, and for prisoner rush waves, it's very effective. So we've looked at the guard posts, the new archer posts, and the ability for Thralls to man siege cauldrons autonomously all on their own, but how do they work all together? Well, I've built up the front door a little more, put the archers back in their place on the towers, and put guards at the front door. Guard posts are again dependent on doors being there, so you can construct doors that lead to nowhere, like these at the front gate, to get extra guard posts where you may not have had any before. This design should be pretty well defensible, so how did it fare against the Purge? Honestly, surprisingly well. The archers did their job, pulling a lot of aggro away from the gates and chipping down the health of many different attackers. The two fighters at the gate honestly did most of the heavy lifting, and the siege cauldrons really helped to thin out the herds and provide valuable area of effect damage. Now this was just a level 1 Purge, and these Thralls are all leveled up to 20, though I don't think that really affects anything to do with the cauldron. Aside from that though, they're all using star metal weapons, the archers are actually using some pretty weak bone arrows, and none of them have healing items, yet they all came together for a pretty cohesive defense. There were a few sticky moments, but with all these features together it worked well. It kind of feels strange to see Thralls doing their jobs like this, as opposed to just running in blindly like they used to, but this feels a lot more suitable. It feels right for Thralls to be manning archer posts and cauldrons. The archer post itself is a standout. I'm sure we all know how inconsistent archers could be before in terms of will they stay or run down into the fight and get slaughtered. Well, that's not a worry anymore because the archer post fixes that. Even though this was just a level 1 purge, these guys actually managed to defend the base against the entire thing. I didn't get involved at all, and they did pretty good. The only thing I had to do was run over to the purge camp and slay the Hand of War because, well, obviously he doesn't run at the base, of course. So we've seen how they all work individually, and we've seen them work together. And in conclusion, are the new additions to base defense good? Yeah, I really think they are. The archer posts were available in the Chapter 2 beta client and they were still being worked on, so they were a touch buggy, but these ones seem to function perfectly. The manned cauldrons are basically what you expect. There's no intelligence or strategy to them, they just dump burning tar on the heads of the enemies, but it's a far better option than having an actual player man the cauldrons. This is kind of a preview of things to come, as this Thrall placement system, where they can be placed into ghost slots, is going to become the norm for basically everything, including workbenches. There are a couple of teething problems with placement, namely on the cauldrons, but this change is really good, and it lets Thralls do the boring parts of base defense like shooting arrows and pulling cauldrons, so you can run out there and get stuck in. Overall, a very, very good change. Thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Let me know what you think of this new system in the comments below. I think it's a solid improvement, and I gotta say, it was a pretty cool feeling to see the Thralls fighting it on their own with a bit more structure and order to the affair. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.